Classical Conversations presents Refining Rhetoric with CEO Robert Bortins, a podcast where faith, business, politics, and classical education meet. Join us as we use the classical tools of rhetoric to seek truth in every arena of life.
Hello, and welcome back to another exciting episode of Refining Rhetoric. Today, we're going to be talking to Leigh Bortins, my mom, founder of Classical Conversations, our chief visionary officer, and it's just amazing the curriculum that God gives her to give to you all. And we're excited to talk about the math map today and really just talk about her love for math and why you can love math too, even if you're not a math person. So, Mom, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Robert. It's good to be here with you.
Now, you're an aerospace engineer, so you know a lot of math. I have an industrial engineering degree, so I took a lot of math classes a lot of times in order to get that one. Didn't necessarily always know it well the first time, but I think through homeschooling, I know if we didn't get something the first time, we'd work on it during the summer, and so it wasn't new to me to have to go through a book a second time in order to understand something. But there's a lot of people who are excited about the math map and are wondering how this is going to really create a math conversation in their home. So tell us why really math really thrills and rejuvenates your soul, because a lot of people may not have that same experience.
Right. Well, I don't think a lot of people know they have that experience and don't know it. What you just said made me think about a story that everyone will appreciate. I'm a third generation University of Michigan engineer. My grandfather and my father both went there. And when I went, same as you, I failed out of my first few math courses and took them again because we do not give up. Perseverance is that hallmark. And I remember when I failed my first class, I told my dad and he said, "That's okay. I failed my whole first semester." So it's a long tradition of not giving up. And parents need to know that math is hard. It's foreign language. And what's really the more thrilling part of it is knowing how it glorifies God and how it builds perseverance and a situational awareness and insight into language. There's so many things that math does for us that most people think you just go through a math book and you're good at calculating. So those are the things that make me happy.
This is breaking news to me because I got a 2.4 GPA my first semester, and they were not as mad at me as I thought, so now I know why.
Yeah.
We've got a long history of not doing well in college our first year, I guess, in the Bryant Bortins.
Well, and that's a kind of testament to 100 years of public school education. We got weeded out, pushed into the best of engineering schools, and found out we weren't as smart as we thought we were, and there was so much more to learn. And so that's one of those life lessons that I can put into the math map as we developed it. Because the number one thing that people forget about math is it is a language. You need to practice reading it the same way you practice Latin or foreign spoken language. And I don't think a lot of people are aware of that. So that's the initial hindrance to all math education is if you can't read it, how are you going to solve problems that are on paper? Sure, we're audio listeners, and that's why God is so good with children who learn that way in math, because they can rattle off and learn their math facts. And you don't need a paper and pencil to do that. And that's why all the memory work is important for them. It's not that you're memorizing the facts, you're memorizing math language, math patterns, math rhythm. And by the way, you get the facts out of it. So, and that's the grammatical side of all math education. But the thing that I want to talk about first, if you don't mind, is the first book we have here. There's 30 booklets. It's a year's worth of work. And there's art that introduces you to each of the math subjects. And Melancholia is the name of the very first piece of art. And I woke up this morning just thinking about this piece because every time I see it, it thrills me. It's some cherubim and seraphim and angels looking in different, they have different facial expressions. One's in astonishment, the other is thinking really hard, another one just looks like he's meditating and is pensive. And this piece of artwork is these three angels with math tools all around them, compasses, globes, Roman numerals, pencils, measuring tapes, all kinds of things. And they're looking at God making creation out of nothing. You don't see God, you don't see the nothing, you don't even see the creation. All you see them do is look with astonishment at what in the world just happened. And that's what we're hoping to have our families be able to do. One of the things that's another heritage that I think you guys received from both your dad's side of the family and mine is grandparents and parents who love the world. We love the creation. We love the people in it. And like when I see you look at your children, I see that same look of astonishment. When I went kayaking this weekend with John and we're looking at all that nature, I see that look of astonishment on his face. When I hear William talking about his church, or when I hear David talking about, first he's such a comedian. When he goes into his comedic mode and he just sees the world in a way that's different than everybody else. I know that you boys inherited the ability to look at things in an exciting, curious way. And unfortunately, a lot of math education makes people feel kind of depleted, defeated, and unable to look up. And no wonder they're taught math is just looking down at a piece of paper. And so we're trying to use math on a piece of paper, as well as we've got a bunch of built-in ancillary products that will help us to also look up. And the artwork's one of them.
Yeah, it's wonderful. And I just think about, my kids being able to do this for 12 years and having that math conversation around the table versus having to learn a bunch of different things because everyone's at different stages, and just the harmony that's going to bring. You didn't become a Christian until later in life, but you had already this love, or people, put you into engineering because you were good at math. So what initially drew you to math at a young age?
It actually wasn't math in the sense that most people think. It wasn't calculating. And that's the biggest, another one of the misnomers about math, that calculation is the same as math. What drew me to math was I got to work on remodeling a World War II airplane in one of my best friend's backyard. Her father was working on it. And his love of aerodynamics and his experience flying these planes, I just caught that passion. And of course, my mom and dad were very entrepreneurial and into numbers, construction companies. My dad built bridges, things like that. So it was just part of my life. And when I realized how much I enjoyed aviation with this neighbor, right? Homeschooling at its finest in a summer school with the guy down the street. I decided that I wanted to go and learn more about engineering. And so it was engineering, and it was the orderliness of thinking that drew me. Turned out I had to do some calculating, and that's where some of those failures came in. But that's you can overcome that, because calculations are things you can memorize, and they're algorithms and patterns you can identify. It takes work, but the average person can do that. So that's what drew me, was a really good high school experience that no one had no credits for it. Mm-hmm. No one structured it. Nobody paid anybody. It was just a good experience.
Yeah, that's a beautiful story. And just a reminder, even if you aren't intentionally homeschooling now, like there's so many ways to homeschool. Like if you're listening to this and you're thinking about homeschooling or thinking about in the future, because you went to Catholic schools and public schools, right? You weren't homeschooled growing up, but you still had neighbors that were pouring into you, much like the communities we try to create here at Classical Conversations. So as you've been developing this math program over the last 7 years or 60 years, just through your experiences, how has your view of math changed, and how have you maybe fallen in love with math, or just started to understand math more effectively by just diving in and writing this curriculum?
Yeah. So one of the things I really want the audience to understand is that God says to not make light of the small things. And the numbers 0, 1, 2, 3, the counting numbers are so rich in mystery and theology. They're so useful in the advanced maths. And to try to explain my point, I know God better because of writing this curriculum in the sense of exploring math and trying to know him better, working to do that. And so we could never have said, we have one God in 3 persons, the second of which is Jesus Christ, if he didn't think the numbers 1, 2, and 3 were pretty important. You could spend a lifetime studying those 3 numbers. And then when he tells you that all came out of nothing and that he's eternal, you could spend another lifetime studying 0 and infinity and trying just to get to know him around those 5 ideas. And so it's that richness that makes you, when you start to see that you become astonished and you become more curious and you have questions you never knew you were going to have. So we begin the curriculum with that. We spend the first 3 weeks basically looking at those ideas, nothing, how I created it, creation out of nothing. We should study the number 0. We look at numbers. What's the threeness of the number 3? And then we go on to compare them to one another. And that's something that you can get a PhD in mathematics if you want. So people who are concerned about gaps or that, where is this going to take our child? Hopefully it's going to take them to the throne room of God. And on the way, you may learn to calculate and do geometry better.
Yeah, I know one of the young ladies that was whose younger brother was in one of these test communities that we were exploring this with, did the curriculum for one year and increased her ACT score by 4. So the whole idea of seek first the kingdom of God and all else will be added to you is just kind of seen in that one little testimony. And that's not why we wrote it, right? You didn't write it for good ACT or SAT scores.
But you'll get them. You will. I mean, and you know what? You may not get them when you're 17 and you want them, but you'll have them when you're teaching your children math. It'll all come back because, life reflects the trivium. As children, we're all grammarians. As parents, we're all dialectic. We're asking, why in the world am I doing this? And what in the world am I supposed to do with this child? And then as grandparents, you start going, maybe I do know something now. And so math will be the same way in anything you teach anybody.
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't even really occur to me until now is that, our curriculum doesn't change every year like so many other curriculum builders who I remember in college, and of course you even see it in the marketplace now. They move chapters around and change kilograms to pounds and all sorts of things so that they can sell new books. But having a classical material, I have my children, your grandchildren in it. Chris, who helps me with the current events and is one of our producers, his kids are going to be growing up and of age soon. So yeah, we're going to have like 30 years from now, people that have gone through it, going through it again with their kids.
Yeah, so whether it's our math curriculum or Latin 25 years ago when we started, nobody wanted to study it. Nobody knew what it was. It's hard. But because we did it together, we had mentors in our community to talk to about it. We have the support on CC Connected. You've got this great training and leadership team that's there to ask questions. We're going to be able to do this together.
Yeah, absolutely. I was joking on another podcast that our country's $34 trillion in debt. Clearly, we're not good at math. So, one of the things that, just curious from your perspective, was math discovered or was math created for us to know God? Like, did humans discover it, or did humans create it to know better?
I think that the majority of it's all his, and we just get the joy of playing hide and seek and discovering and finding it. And I think every now and then there's some math where some man or woman has gone, I think this is how it works. And it remains a paradigm for maybe some time until God's up there laughing, saying, just wait, you haven't got it quite right yet. I think of, how with Ptolemy, it was math equations that Galileo was arguing about, where we went from saying, was the earth the center of the universe or the sun the center of the universe? Right? Total paradigm shift based on a math equation. No wonder people didn't want their lives turned upside down, because thinking now we went around the sun instead of the other way made us had to think about a lot of things differently. So they got that wrong. But that doesn't mean that they weren't trying to pursue truth and that they didn't have good ideas behind those equations that were inaccurate. So like now when, people tell me things about black holes or about origin theory or things like that, I'll go, yeah, you're probably pursuing some really good ideas, but let's not think we know exactly what's going on. The math may change again.
Hey everyone, I want to interrupt this episode to let you know about this new movie, UnsungHero.movie. To go check out the website. It is the story of Rebecca St. James and how she became who she is, and about King and Country. My wife and I got to see a sneak preview, and I tell you, it was wonderful. Definitely bring some tissues. It's a great story about faith and family, something generations can enjoy together. You won't want to miss this. It is coming out April 26th, so make it a family day at the theater. use the hashtag Unsung Hero Movie and tag them on social media. From the creators of the Jesus Revolution movie comes Unsung Heroes. So go ahead and enjoy this family entertainment. Tickets are on sale now. You can visit tickets.unsunghero.movie. That's tickets.unsunghero.movie and make plans to see it today. Now let's get back to the show. Yep. Just like science is always a continual study and testing where a theory's right and repeatability, math is doing the same thing, and they're discovering, more math equations and more things all the time. So it's an exciting time to be alive, and I'm sure there's a lot of math behind the rise of AI. So it's really just algorithms, right?
Right. Well, is AI accurate information? So what AI stands for? And who is it that's going to really understand the math behind it? Or is it going to make us dumber? Just like we can't use the sun to figure out where we are anymore thanks to GPS. So for every progress, there's something you lose and there's something you gain. And a wise person tries to figure that out, which is which.
A lot of homeschoolers, they're juggling kids and all the things, and some of them aren't math people. So how do you see the math map helping those individuals get out of that rut and really see that they can enjoy math?
There's, I think, 3 things that they're going to get out of it, and that'll help them overall. One is the map itself, the idea that the same concepts are repeated over and over again. So eventually the parent who's struggling will be able to say, okay, we have seen that before, and I remember what's coming next. And that'll come from, a number of years and a number of children practicing with them. The other one is, as a math person, as an engineer, I've always known who my community of mathematicians were. I've known if I had a math question, how to go find the answer, who to talk to, who to call. Well, everybody in Classical Conversations will now have a math community. The families around you will be working on the same math as you. So you'll have somebody to ask questions right away from. And then the third thing will be that the math curriculum is so focused on the language of math and the ability to read math. And it will look difficult to a person who's maybe math timid at first. But when they realize page after page that, I'm just supposed to be reading this, there's not much calculation to do. And almost all of our audience can read well. They will start to gain confidence just because they'll know what the words mean. So that when they get to those high school years and they're actually then doing a lot of calculations, they know what they're asked to do. I mean, how many of us in Algebra 1, Algebra 2, don't know how to begin a problem? Or they don't know what the instruction quite means because it always changed on you. So the mapping is so consistent that the vocabulary and the language building is a big hurdle that we should help you overcome.
Now, this idea of a math community, can you help unpack, how do you see that unfolding and, how that will kind of work in community versus maybe what we have in a challenge program now where people are all over the map? As it was?
Yeah. Well, since we've been using a curriculum that we didn't own, it's always been difficult to do a lot of really intensive trainings because we weren't legally allowed to break it up into bits and pieces. So we can do that now. So we can help make sure at the first level that our challenge tutors get all the training and help and support that they get so that then they can help with the parents and the students. And then meanwhile, we will continue to have 4 or 5 different ways for parents as well as the tutors to get online help and ask questions from Kirsty and I, as well as recordings. And then my hope is as those tutors get trained better and better, the parents will know that their tutors are trustworthy and have more answers than they realized before. But the other thing that's exciting to me about that being mapped is your Challenge A students, your Challenge B students, your Challenge 1 students will now have a community because when they come to their day at CC, they'll all be working on the same math. And so they won't just have each other, their mom at home or the book or the answer key. There's going to be people around them that can answer the questions. But here, this is the one thing that I can't solve for anybody. If you're not curious and you're not astonished and you don't ask questions, people don't know that you need help. So I really want to encourage people to ask when they don't know something.
Yeah, that's a good advice. So many people want to, they don't want other people to think that they're struggling or not knowing what's going on. And so they don't ask.
Yeah. I was saying on the book club yesterday that we're actually crippling you and using this math curriculum, because if you look at Carry On, Mr. Bowditch, one of those favorite books we have on what classical education really is, that boy, Nathan, when he was 14 years old, he had to teach himself Latin first so he could read the books Newton wrote, so he could teach himself calculus. All right. So we didn't write it in Latin. We wrote it in English so that you can go ahead and skip that step. But remember, it's hard work that makes things accessible. And there's no way for me to eliminate that. But what we did in the math map is we looked at what makes the hard work difficult and tried to organize that into not just manageable bites, but in both the system through the math map as well as that community to help you to see when you don't understand a word or an algorithm or what a solution is, that you just have all that help.
I know since it's a new math program that there's going to be kind of an onboarding process where people are starting to learn about it and get familiar to it. So explain to us how you could see a family like going through the grammar, dialectic, and rhetorical stage of just using the product itself, and like how would that look in your mind, that first year that we're going to be in challenge A versus maybe their experience in challenge B the following year and challenge 1 the year after that.
Yeah. So any kind of academic experience, actually any kind of experience you have, you should first think about how would you study the Bible and then make that comparison. So for instance, if you're a brand new believer, you don't know everything's in the Bible. Now you might go ahead and read it from page 1 to page 1,000, but the odds are you're not. You're going to read parts of it and you're going to have someone talk to you about it, or you might listen to a podcast on it. So what I see is if people would think about how do I study things that I don't have to get graded on, and the state's not expecting a credit, and our Bible's a really good example of that, and approach the math map or Latin or history, literature, anything with that from that same way, you'll find that you're more at peace and it's more comfortable. And you get familiar with it first. So I know one of the things we do with little children is have them memorize some Bible verses, and we have them memorize the books of the Bible. And thank God there's not new editions that change the books around. You already know where they are. So the math map has that too. So the first thing we are hoping every single family will do is just get familiar with what's in the math map. What are its parts and components? And begin looking at each page, not to solve the problems. So this is another thing. We don't read the Bible so that we know exactly what God said and we're Him, because we get the perfect answer. We read it for insight and to progress and to know more. And so if you read the math map that way and you look at each page and say, okay, this I understand. This part's familiar. But this part, I don't know what's going on. So maybe this is where I should spend some time wrestling and tackle it. Now, children do not know how to do that. And what we're hoping through the math map, as each year goes by, your children will get better at it, but that you as a parent will get better at it quicker. That booklet by booklet, you'll start to see, oh, this is how it works. This is where the language is improving my understanding. There's this thing called scaffolding throughout the entire curriculum. So some of the pages look dense, and that's on purpose because all the steps are on the page, and your child may only have to answer the very last step. But the algorithm's all there. And then what happens the next year is a step's taken away. And then the next year, another step's taken away. And the page gets less dense looking with more white space. But guess what we did? We filled it up with some more problems for the older kids. But that you'll get familiar to the scaffolding, to the language, to the math itself. And that maybe that third year, think essentials, think 3 years at Henley. Maybe that third year, you'll start going, oh yeah, I know what I'm doing. But that's the time it takes.
Yeah, I always, coaching sports and having young kids, you could coach a sports team that's full of 7-year-olds in a way to make them the best 7-year-old team and win those games, or you can coach in a manner that's going to help them be the best, high school player or, college player or Major League Baseball player. And so many of us, because we're in this flesh and it's day by day, you think about, oh, what do I need to do right now versus the process of where we want them to be, 18 years from now or, 15 years from now or 12 years from now, whatever that case may be. And so I think that the math map's going to give you skills beyond math for whatever the Lord has you do. And
Can you imagine how Bible study would go if we were graded each semester on our studies of it? We would all quit. So that's the thing. You got to have that attitude. And what you just said about sports is absolutely right. I think of that movie Hoosiers and how he was so willing to lose games until they saw the bigger vision of what was going to happen. And then you win all the games, right? So.
Yeah, absolutely. You got to put the hard work in. Now, this episode, if you're listening to it close to the release date or on the release date, you can buy the math map. Maybe it's at your house already and you're unboxing it. Like, what would you recommend to those families who, just got it? They're not starting the semester yet. What are the things that they should be doing this summer? Obviously, going to practicum.
Yes, practicum.
ccpracticum.com. But what are the things that you would encourage them to do from the start? Because I know when I've talked to you about how you read books a little bit differently than maybe the rest of us do. So how would you encourage a mom who's opening this math program that looks nothing like maybe they've ever seen before get familiar?
Yeah. So one of the things I suggest you do is take your complex printed book that you have and go on CC Connected and get the same week for the naturals booklet, which is around a first grade level, and look at the two of them and flip page by page and see, oh, this is what they would have done when they were younger. This is what they're going to do now. So that you can start to help assess and see if your child is struggling or not. I should say if they're struggling, you can say to them, oh, let me print this one page off from the naturals for you to do so that you can learn what we missed. The thing that folks will be seeing over the next couple of months is we're also going to be putting on CC Connected 3 lower grades. So you don't have to go back just to the first grade. You can go back a few other grades. And I don't even like saying back. I'm thinking back in age. There's other videos we've talked about where we're looking at the way a mathematician looks at math. It's not like you're going backwards. You're looking at narrower domains, more natural numbers versus broken numbers. So you'll have, that's what I suggest you do is look at the naturals, look at your child's and think about what are you seeing? And so that you start to see what the map is. Then the other thing is look at page 1, 5, 9, and 13, and you'll see they're super similar. Look at page 2, 4, 6, 10. You'll see they're super similar because every 4 pages reviews the previous 4 pages. And so looking for those two aspects in the mapping will help a lot, I think.
Just getting familiar with it, using the tool of comparison, right, which is one of our tools that we practice at practicums in the summer, and of course helps us understand the world around us as classical educators. So that's a great advice, and I know parents will definitely appreciate that. So what do you hope, if we're sitting here a year from now, we're wrapping up that first year of the math map, that the new ones being launched for Challenge B. We've got these, 3, or maybe a 4th one by then on CC Connected for the younger ages. Like, what do you hope that a flourishing classical conversations community will be talking about or saying?
I hope that they'll be mad about a few things. I hope they'll be excited about a few things. And I hope that they will be asking questions on a few things, because isn't that what happens when we go to Bible study? We're trying to understand how it all works. And so that will make me really happy. The other thing that would make me happy is if the students, or maybe the parents even, who just really didn't like math, can relate somehow to the art and the literature and the games and the ancillary things, that they can say, that they can begin to say, I still probably don't like math, but I'm starting to see the unseen, and maybe God really is in this, and that they're beginning to ask those questions, especially the older students, which Challenge A students probably not, but the tutors and the parents.
Well, we're kind of approaching the end of our time together. So is there any final messages you want to leave for our audience today?
So something that's going to be is not noticeable when you get the packet, because it shows up like a book. That's what it is in the top right corner of all the page 1s, 5, 9s, and 13s is a little box that says flashcards. If you don't know your math facts really well, the rest of math can be very difficult. So we encourage, I don't care if you're 17 or 7, do flashcards now and then throughout the week in order to be sure that your calculating skills are faster and more accurate. And then the other thing would be to remember that you are innately a mathematician. think about it. Not just that we have one God in three persons, the second, which is Jesus, but we all have a heartbeat. We are born second by second with a breath rate and a pattern in our heart. And pattern's a big part of math. You know that we are all geometers. Otherwise, we'd be walking into walls. We naturally know what proportions are. There's so many math things that we do that they're so innate, we don't even notice them. And if nothing else, if people start going, oh, that's a mathematical skill that my body just does, and start to pay attention to the world and how it was created, that would make me really happy too.
Well, tell them about how they can get a hold of you and Kirsty during this summer and fall when you're going to be doing live shows. Of course, you can go to leighbortins.com as well, but tell them the best way to connect with you.
Yeah, so if you have a philosophical question and just have big ideas, we will continue to be Wednesdays at 1 p.m. live. Kirsty and I for an hour, taking your questions all summer and into the fall. And then those are all recorded and are left at not just leighbortins.com, but are part of the Math Map Companion. We also have forums, and then we have the companion, which Robert said earlier is being released around right now. It's April. The companions, think of it as an instruction manual, one instruction manual for your family of all ages, and that'll be online. And then you remember your tutors want you to ask questions. And if you don't have a chance to just talk to your tutor 1 week, to your child's tutor, get a sticky note, stick it on that math book and say, son, ask her this question because mom needs help. Because that's what we're really here for in communities, to help one another.
Well, thank you so much for being on the show today, Mom. And thank you so much for pouring your life into all of these homeschooling families around the world.
Thanks. I love doing it.
All right. Well, be sure to share this episode. Check us out on YouTube. YouTube Music has purchased Google Play, so please resubscribe if you are a former Google Play subscriber, and check us out on all of your favorite podcast platforms. Until next time, God bless.
Thank you for listening to Refining Rhetoric with Robert Bortins. Want more? Make sure to subscribe so you won't miss an episode. You can also follow us on social media to continue the conversation, and visit classicalconversations.com/rhetoric to find out how you can join a local homeschool community.